Welcome to the Access Sport podcast, your best chance to learn more about our students, our teams and our programmes.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Access Sport podcast. You won't have seen on this recording, but there was some really amusing technical difficulties we were having there before we started recording. Jordan had like a Christmas intro on and everything for us. But without further ado, I just want to welcome Colin Flood, as you can see from the banner, Head of Access Sport Apprenticeships. Really excited to have Colin on. He's been a brilliant addition to the team in recent months, and we're going to learn a little bit about Colin's past, I guess, or what he's done up to this point, and he's going to tell us a little bit more for the benefit of our students and staff about Access Sport Apprenticeship. So welcome, Colin. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Gary. Cheers, George.
So, George, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it's like with all these podcasts, really. It's sort of just to get a view of your background, Colin, and sort of, go through your story a little bit before, as Gary says, coming on to, the impact that has on our learners as well. So what's your story?
I think if you're talking journey-wise, I've kind of, probably like most of these students in the FE provision are going to take in the next, 10, 15, 20 years, started out with coaching in schools. And that's what kind of whet my appetite for the career pathway I've chosen and kind of navigated my way through, college course into sort of PE technician role, into college, back into college again, into university. And it's been a continual sort of cycle of sticking around sport and finding what other qualifications I can use to further develop, George, and progress, both, on a professional level, but also, just in terms of keeping, what I enjoy doing in a job, which is sport, in progression and a good career pathway. So it's taken me from coaching, it's taken me into FE, it's taken me into higher education, and then most recently it's taken me into sport-based apprenticeships, which I've really enjoyed, moving into this area and sort of supporting employers, supporting employers of various levels, the smaller companies into the bigger sort of like levy paying organisations, and having an awareness both on a professional level and kind of development level of what it takes really within the industry to develop people within the business, and the employer engagement role that I've now undertaken with Access is now allowing me to kind of share that on a more broader scale, reaching out right across the college provision, initially to support our learners through some engagement with employers through pre-apprenticeship, and then really just kind of, supporting employers to upskill, to provide new opportunities, to tailor apprenticeships a little bit more to the demands of the business. Because as you're probably well aware, post-COVID, we deliver slightly different in different ways. We're all, a little bit more adverse to online learning, more hybrid models of learning, and that's reflected in some of the apprenticeship programs as well that are being delivered. There's now an awareness that we all kind of appreciate that working from home is acceptable, and that's part of the package, and you don't have to kind of be in the 9-to-5 role. And I feel that's reflected a lot as well in my journey. Is kind of, I have a tendency to kind of, it's more project focused. So you're getting in, you're building a project, and it's looking at building another project. And along the way, I've kind of, navigated my way around some decent employers, and it's brought me to this point really with apprenticeships, where I feel I've kind of found my niche now, if that makes sense. Working with employers and working with learners to show the journey in both sort of pathways.
Well, before we get into the apprenticeships, you've obviously touched on that quite a bit, Colin. I just want to take it back, I guess, to your personal journey in specific. So, we spoke to a variety of different guests who work for Access, who work outside of Access, in terms of when you finish school, which is that position that either our learners are in at the moment or have been in over the last 6 to 12 months, or our prospective learners are, coming to that point. What were your options when you finished school? What influenced the decision you made, and I guess what was the impact of those steps maybe later on down the line?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I left school in 1998, so it was a long time ago. And in terms of career advice and guidance at that time, there wasn't an awful lot of it. If I'm brutally honest, it was a college sort of system where once you left year 11, it was go and choose a college and a college course, and you were kind of left to yourself. And with our school I went to, Campion were a little bit late phasing that in. And then when we got to the point of choosing colleges, I went to UBird, and the only option for me at that time, because the course was before, was a painting and decorating course, which was ridiculous. I didn't enjoy it, didn't like it, but I went on it.
Good to know that, actually, Colin. You're looking a bit tired here.
Yeah. No, it just literally walks in the careers advice and guidance. People just said, what's your first option? Sport. We haven't got any sport courses with spaces. What else would you like to do? It was like a carousel of different things. And I'll be honest, it was quite daunting. I didn't go with my parents. I just went on my own with the head of year 11. And you were put in front of a lot of different people. And generally all the spaces were on the painting and decorating and some of the sort of lower skilled levels. No disrespect to painters and decorators, but there was a big vast sort of number of places in them areas. And then going in and just thinking after 2 or 3 weeks, look, this isn't for me. Can I switch to sport? And they just said, look, no. And then I'd kind of just left Gaz and when I got a job, basically. And then before that academic year finished, I remember going back to Campion, just saying, "Can you help me? I'm looking to do something in sport." And at the time, there was no sixth form, there was no careers advice and guidance people there. It's a massive difference from what it is now. But I still see examples of me back then, still now, with the kind of, we still don't know what to do. We'll have a try of different things, and this is the bit where work experience at that time didn't exist. It existed in the format of like you went in year 11, but I think now there's more emphasis on that. In what you enjoy doing and what your progression route might look like, get experience in that, and I would have really benefited from that further back when I was making my choices. But nothing happens at the school, and about a year later, I think it was about like 18 going on 19. I was helping out on a building site with my uncle, Ian Forgy, who worked at Campion with Steve Todd. I just went in one day because his dad was working on the site with us as an electrician. And at that time, I was playing football and I was getting away with it to a certain extent. I was still doing something I enjoyed, but I just said to him, I said, look, I've had enough. I want to get on a course that's going to help me progress in coaching. And because it was mid-year, the only course I could get on was sports massage therapy down at Duke Street. So it was like you're still kind of in sport, and like I might go down physio, go through uni, but you know what? It was one of the best courses I ever did because I learned so much about anatomy and the body and stuff like that, and I was interested in it. So that geared me up then to going back to school, and I worked voluntary in Campion for nearly 9 months as a PE technician. I just wanted to be around the PE department and I wanted to coach, and lucky enough, the school got me back in and offered me a PE technician's role. I was around about like 20, and it just snowballed from there, really. I got myself around good people, good mentors, people within the industry who were offering different things around like sport development and PE teaching was a good route. Pushed up a few things with English and maths I had time to do at the school, and science and stuff like that, just to give you a more broader view of what was available to you once you're at college or uni. And then I done the school allowed me to do the sports access course, which is like what you class as a foundation degree, step up now. That first year, the gap year, and I've done it at the City of Liverpool College, which is Liverpool Community College down in Vauxhall. And I met unbelievable people there who then started to help me understand 3, 4, 5 years what you need to be getting on to see what that looks like. Maggie Bannon was my tutor down there, and honestly, even today, still vaguely kind of keep in touch with her because they invest so much time, not just as much in the course, but in you, in helping you kind of forecast, plan out, and I'll probably come to it shortly with the apprenticeships. That's kind of the message I'm giving at the moment is like, why are you using this course? What's this course for? They're the initial conversations I'm having with parents all the time to say, look, you really, there's big step, big opportunity. And this is where they lead to. And if I had the foresight of that back when I was in year 11, I probably wouldn't have wasted that year or two that I did do working on sites and stuff like that. But yeah, it led me on to an access course, went to Edgehill Uni, in that little transition, got a full-time job working at
Colby, before we come on to this bit, 'cause it's probably going to start to accelerate and get really relevant. You said obviously you wasted that year or so, a year and a half, and it's not uncommon. You know, I think everyone's had that story of having to take on part-time jobs or do things that they felt maybe did waste the time. Was there anything you took from that, even if it was a motivation? You know, when you've done them jobs that maybe you didn't enjoy, was there any value in that for you?
Yeah, I mean, before I'd get to them points, I probably, when I recognise now, back in year 10, there was opportunities to plan, and I didn't really understand what they were at the time, and that obviously led me down slightly the path I went to with poor choices and what courses I went on and how quick I reacted to it. But in terms of gaining life skills and work experience, working on a building site will give you so much, you know, so much of that in a way which obviously that can support you when you're making different choices within work. Things like timekeeping, you know, just general things, money management, doing something you really enjoy doing and getting paid for it, or not doing something you enjoy doing and getting paid for it. Being somewhere on time, you know, working to task, stuff like that. All them relevant skills that at the time you don't really understand. You're developing them, but when you get into something like a course or university, you kind of you reach the muscle memory in it. You kick straight in. You go, well, I know I need to be there at that time. I know how to manage my time. I know how to communicate with different people. So a wide range of different like life skills I developed that I probably wouldn't have got going to college, other than within my own class, my own environment that I was actually studying in. So as much as I say I didn't really appreciate the building site work, I weren't very good at painting and decorating, and I weren't extremely good at labouring or making cups of tea at the time. But the communication part of it, which, you know, led me to work with lots of different people, generally understanding why and what you are doing within a building site. And I think one of the things that stuck with me first couple of weeks on the building site was the analogy, be a sponge. And that's all I kept getting told. I was, for weeks and weeks, I was going, what does he mean, be a sponge? And then it was just absorbing all the basics, be there on time. And a funny story to that, I was working over the water on a golf course.
Just for the benefit of people outside of Liverpool, by the way, over the water, it's on the Whittle.
On the Whittle.
That's amazing. We're not like,
so
we haven't got a desert island somewhere.
Yeah, so I was going over to the Whittle, and I was literally 2 minutes late, and he drove away and left me. But in that respect, I lost out on the money for the day.
Yeah.
But little did he know, I jumped the train over and made my way over and made my own way to work. So he paid me half day, but it was a big learning curve to me. And all that was I was actually sitting in the house thinking, oh, well, I'll only be 5 minutes late. I'll just finish my tea and my toast off and stuff like that. And it was a big lesson learned. So every day after that, then I was there 10 minutes early, and I got myself a flask. You know, so in terms of life skills, I've developed loads in that respect of how to be in a working environment and how to adapt to, you know, how that works.
I just want to take this chance to plug that to our learners. So, you know, a lot of you are developing CVs, or at the moment, if you're in our college, you're really pushing your LinkedIn profiles, and we're trying to get you to get them out there. If you are involved in any, or if you have gained any work experience, they're the type of skills you need to be plugging them on your LinkedIn profile. Look, I've shown an ability to be accountable, to kind of turn up on time, to be a sponge, or to learn different things. And I think some of our learners just underestimate that even that type of work experience, regardless of whether it's sports relative or not, is important to employers, isn't it?
Yeah, Colin, but if you look at the podcast we've done now, I think we've done 10. In at least 8 of them, the reoccurring theme has popped up of either work experience or life skills or doing things that you're not 100% comfortable with. And I just think it's such an important message for us to keep pushing. onto learners, especially, and parents who might be listening to this. You don't realise until you get to your late 20s, I think, or 30s, all them moments that you've had where you're like, this is just not for me, this. You slowly start to develop yourself into a person so that when you are what you'd call a professional and you're really deep into your professional life, one day they do come back around and you think, you know, I learned this skill that I need for this exact moment, you know, when I was doing something I hated. And I think, as Gary rightly says, with us trying to push things on LinkedIn and showing the best side of yourself, you really can't put a price on it, on how valuable it is to go and just get out there and just do things and put yourselves in positions where, you know, maybe you aren't so comfortable, but the only way to progress through that is by doing it. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on my experience and where from the very first day I left school to get working, I always had that attitude of kind of jump in and see what happens. You know, sometimes not having a plan's okay, because you're going into something where you're not fearing, you know, what's going to happen, you know, a couple of weeks down the line.
People overthink it, don't they?
Absolutely,
a lot of people overthink things.
You've got to go through that experience to kind of, you know, be brave enough, but that'll help you with your judgments further down the line. It certainly has for me. But you never know who you meet, what you know, what new skills you learn or develop, and what opportunities further down the line it presents for you. And like most of the students who are attached to our colleges, football's kind of the focus for a lot of them in terms of what they want to do to develop their physical their physical strengths and physical ability and stuff within football. But when I draw back on my experiences, I used to meet a lot of people through work, through football, and playing football in various areas and environments, and playing for semi-professional teams that got me to meet different people, you know, who don't really socialise with outside of football. So from a networking point of view, it was unbelievable. And some of my best mates now, the lads are, you know, all the people who lived around when I grew up, they're generally the ones who I spent a bit more time with, you know, in the social aspect of like playing football and professionally as well. Got some you know, good mates outside of the sort of the shorter circle of where I live and stuff like that. But it's a pet hate of my kids and the missus everywhere I go. If there's someone there, you're letting on to someone and they go, you know, well, you're going to stop for 5 minutes now, you're going to stop for 10 minutes and talk, and they generally walk away. And it used to bug me a bit, but now I just look at it and think, well, you know, if you ever hit a point where things were hard, you've always got a lot of people to call upon, and if you have that manner about yourself where you're approachable and, you know, you've got time for other people, and they're things you learn by different environments and meeting different people. I think, you know, further down the line, it'll benefit you. You know, if you do it certain things where you need like work, or if you do need opportunities to see things differently, you've got those people to call on them.
Spot on. Just on that one, just to give you a really recent and relative story to that note, I was in a fortunate position. I say fortunate because I always enjoy it. I was doing interviews on Friday for one of our Manchester sites with potential students, and there was a young gentleman who sat in front of me, and I was obviously going through a series of questions as you do in an interview with regards to whether he was suitable for our courses. And from the moment he sat down, you could just tell he was just a nice young lad, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he sat there with a smile on his face. He was always looking you in the eye. He was really interested in what you were saying. He listened intently to what you were saying. And his responses were always just dead pleasant. And after about 5 minutes, I found myself just almost discarding the interview, because I just thought, you know what, you're really a nice young lad. You're dead interesting. I didn't even ask him about his grades. It was like, you know what, it doesn't really matter. And I said to him at the end, you know what, whether you come to our course or go to another course, you're going to get on in life if you continue the way you've just been for that last 10 minutes. You turned up on time, you're well presented, you're really interesting to speak to, you're dead enthusiastic. And it's like, I can't advocate that enough to the young people that we work with. Is you might not be that person at the moment, and it might not be something that comes naturally to you, but the only way you get better at that is by talking to people and just engaging. And we'll come across them all the time, don't we? You know, in our colleges where, you know, and there's always that person who smiles at you and lets on to you and shakes your hand when you walk past. And I don't think there's anything more important than that as a kind of life lesson in terms of being able to get on.
we can all learn to be that as well, which I think is a very important point. Like, you know, it might not come naturally to you, or you might not be, you know, sort of an outward-facing person who wants to be the centre of every conversation. But we can all develop skills. Like, personally, I'm still trying to develop them all the time now, you know, of being sort of the on time, or, you know, just listening to actual conversations and being a part when you're in a conversation, being a part of it. And, you know, I think we've all been around football, but that old saying of being coachable is such a life thing that we all need, because I think we all fall into the trap of thinking we know everything at a certain point of our lives. And, you know, when you really humble yourself and understand that no matter who you're around, whether it be at a workplace, you know, in a classroom, or just on day to day, there's something to learn all the time, and you can then take that into your professional career.
Yeah, definitely. And in that instance, I almost, you know, just pressed a little reset button in my own head to go, do you know what? Sometimes I'm too bothered about saying the right thing and picking my words and whatever, and just being like this young lad I'm sitting in front of here, and just being really enthusiastic and pleasant, smile on my face, interested in what other people have to say. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But anyway, Col, we you know, I want to try and push it on to talking specifically about your role now within Access Sport. So we've been on that trajectory at the moment as a college, where we're trying to do as much as we can to develop our offer. You know, as I said at the start of the call, appointing someone like you who's going to drive the employability side and the apprenticeships is really important to us. Talk to us about your role then, first and foremost, for our college students, the students that are on our football and sports programs, and also obviously the role that you play with employers in terms of trying to develop their business and roles within their businesses.
Yeah, no, I think the journey we're on at the moment is to support you know, the staff in order to phase in this awareness around what employers are looking for, because how we use FE provision to steer those particular next destinations that young people take are very important in terms of how we engage with employers, whether that's through HE courses, whether that's through scholarships or through apprenticeships. And what we're trying to implement now is a pre-apprenticeship pathway for learners that will make relevance to the FE provision that they're currently engaging with.
Sorry, Carl, just again, I don't mean to cut you up. FE, for the benefit of everyone, is college.
Yeah.
And HE is higher education, further education.
So, and just stop me if I jargon it or shorten it. But no, I think what my role at the moment is to kind of come up with a model of practice that fits into the programme of delivery for FE and further education in the college system, that allows learners some flexibility to underpin why they're doing what they're doing, and how they can use that to be more aware of, you know, how apprenticeships or how jobs in general are shaping up once they come out the sort of the back end of their course, when they're planning their next destination. So I've been working with a lot of employers over the last couple of years to see, you know, what the industry looks like from a role and responsibilities point of view, development point of view, how they've had to kind of adapt to things like post-COVID, delivery plans in schools, and kind of sort of imprinting that within the awareness of the tutors to kind of support them to kind of explain to learners that, look, you know, you may not know if you're on a 2-year course at the end of year one what you're going to do. So the flexibility within this pathway initiative is to kind of help you navigate your way around the different options. We have to make it flexible in that respect, but we also have to make it a little bit structured in empowering the learners to kind of work with employers. And as a college, we're working to have local links to stakeholders within schools, you know, coaching companies, and they'll go as small as the local independent provider who delivers at a PE school. We're linking them with you know, site leads and learners to do some work-based learning with a view of becoming a little bit more involved within the company. But I guess the message there from a delivery point of view for FE is that we're trying to use what key stakeholders in the world of work want at the you know, from their employees to shape what we deliver in our FE provision. We can't do it all. We can't kind of be, you know, scattergun approach all over the place, but we can have certain pathways around like sport development and coaching and higher performance coach, which are leading now to some really exciting pathways where big levy-paying organisations such as Liverpool Football Club, Everton Football Club, City Council provision within leisure centres. So in terms of the reach and in terms of what we're working with to introduce learners to, that'll go from coaching providers, school placements, leisure placements within a context of like sport development. So how do they grow participation? Linking them into the sport development departments to get some experience with their sport development officers. Even other pathways like self-employment through gym and PT qualifications, and making them more aware of what is available to them in the work experience element. But also, my role then is to engage with those employers to bring them up to speed where what apprenticeship standards need to look like in terms of adding the training elements. Because if there's an opportunity there for that employer to engage with taking that learner on and continue their learning, we want to be able to give them the highest quality qualification with that sort of pathway for the learner to gain the relevant experience, understand the company and understand how dynamically it works, but also, kind of create that relationship and those links for our learners initially to say, look, if you want to employ someone.
Sorry, Carl, before we come on to the formal apprenticeship side, I just want to backtrack slightly on the pre-apprenticeship idea, because it's something that we've worked on together. From my perspective, to try and simplify it, it's about trying to structure a work placement program for the benefit of the students and the employer, isn't it? So what I mean by that is, we work placements or work experience when it comes to colleges is bands about a lot. So and I think at times it can be very informal. So what we're trying to do is create a bit of a stepping stone towards work experience first and foremost, is in preparing them to go, on that work experience journey. But then once they're there, to try and further build those blocks. So there's an opportunity at the end of it to potentially gain an apprenticeship or to gain some long-term employment with that employer.
Absolutely, yeah. And the starting point for that, sending that message out, is at the year 11 sort of recruitment drive. So. And my message is more to parents in that respect. That drive is to say, look, we're not here to kind of convince you to choose us because it's a pathway, but we're here to say to you, look, we are thinking about the next destination. That's even before they've signed up with us and getting through, our course. We are looking at how we can help your young person, your child, to start to kind of look that forward, sort of thinking, have that forward thinking mentality around. Well, if I go on this course, it's going to give me these variety of options and I can get work experience with these employers along the way. But if I wanted to bring my own employer in, that's perfectly fine. We love to engage, with different employers to better understand how we can shape our apprenticeships just as much as we can with our courses for FE provision. But I think the key thing there is sitting with the parents at the start saying, look, we want to get away from that idea of you all come out with the same piece of paper, and we want to add in that little bit about, well, let's help them start thinking now about employment at the end of this, and what does that look like, and what reputable, or growing businesses or employers can we start exposing the young people to, for them to make better choices once they finish their FE provision. And that's really the message for the parents. The young person will always have an idea about sport, coaching, football, and I think this is what sets us aside from different providers, is having that opportunity to link the employer all the way back through to the interview part at year 11. Why? Because they're telling us what they want in their jobs, and we're going to kind of help fine tune some of the provision plus also the pre-apprenticeship model to expose them to that. And then hopefully what that should have a knock-on effect in is higher employment rates, better retention at university, better decisions when they exit the college courses. And if we can show that to parents and say, look, we're not going to get it completely right, but what we're offering them is a really good filtering system for them to better understand where their next destination looks like. And I think that we're on the right track with that at the moment.
And go on, sorry, George, you want to jump in there?
Just for me, like when you see the word, if you come at it from a completely simple point of view, when you see the word apprenticeship, I think perception is sometimes a little bit blurred about what it is. So sort of my question to you would be, if sort of a parent was sat in front of you, what is the actual, like the main benefits, would you say, of engaging with an apprenticeship?
It's a job. It's you get paid. It's a job with training. It's specialised training. So gone are the days of the old sort of framework model where you got like an MVQ file to go with your training and you were released for the day at college. Everything's mapped around now, making them more employable and the job description. So when a learner signs up or successful gaining employment on an apprenticeship, think of it as a job. And the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are there to kind of progress the learner and upskill the learner are focused around the business itself. So it's not kind of shoehorned into like a qualification. It's mapped around and organically changing with the business. And the flexibility within apprenticeship standards now allows you to do that more. It tailors more towards what the business needs are. And that should then hopefully, make them more employable because they've got a full, sort of knowledge, awareness of the business. They've had the opportunity to develop the skill through practical, and their general behaviours then is that they're kind of more aware of what they need to do, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, who to do it with, etc. And that's the way standards have changed in a sporting context, from my knowledge. And in the past, we've had some unbelievable success rates with it about that employer engagement, and that's what we have a really good sort of overview of is constant and regular feedback with the employers. Okay, where can we develop them now? Where can we progress them now through reviews? So there's a real good support mechanism there for that training element once they get an apprenticeship. But it is a job. It's a job with pay. So it's not like going to college and continuing your study. It's the practical elements. There's a real sort of understanding now that to make apprenticeships really work, you've got to get them practically doing things. And we've got to think slightly different about how we evidence competency through knowledge, skills and behaviours.
No, I think that's a really key point, Colin. I agree with it. And I've been in that position in the past of being an employer on many times, certainly with the way that it used to work, where you were trying to shoehorn jobs into your apprentices' kind of day-to-day work just to help them pass this particular qual, when really it wasn't natural. It was like, well, how's he going to do that within my business? And I think that did for a long time put employers off. But I think it's a key point you make there that now it's more of an approach of, correct me if I'm wrong, you go in and meet the employer first. You find out what type of roles and responsibilities that potential apprentice would be fulfilling, and then everything's built around that then, and everything's shaped based on the needs of the business. Which, if particularly in this economic climate when a lot of small businesses are struggling to kind of pay wages and stuff, they want to make sure that they stretch their investments as far as possible, don't they?
Yeah, I think what's exciting now with apprenticeships is that there is an awareness that businesses have to adapt quick to various things, and what that's having is a knock-on effect. So when you set your apprenticeship plan up with the employer at the start, and you're looking at all your skill scan is complete, and you're looking where the gaps are, those gaps may accelerate learning in certain areas that you plan for, but then we could hit another lockdown and then a lot of stuff goes virtual, and they're developing all these range of new skills and new knowledge that maybe weren't planned in at the time, but because apprenticeships are quite flexible in that respect, you can adapt and you can transfer the skills to something slightly different. And I've noticed it a lot more, the transferable skill elements across different things, and learners have adapted a lot better. And when they've come to endpoint assessments, learners have had that experience of communicating stuff in different ways, demonstrating, not just practically, but they can verbally back the practical aspect of it up, and they're now more aware and more educated and skilled to do the job in that respect. So retention rates in the way that I've done are really high. The employers have really fine-tuned the way they want the position to go to an extent, but because you're making it quite organic and flexible, the learner's quite adaptable then to change within the role. And the days of like just a rigid job description are becoming a little bit more broader for the purposes of developing the individual, but the role itself as well.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
We could, I think we could do like an hour on this, to be totally honest. It is it's such an, I don't know whether, this is just from me, but I feel like it's an underappreciated sort of alleyway into your career. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes, as I mentioned before, perception can be a little bit skewed, but I think the opportunities are endless. And as you say, like there's more than one way to become a success, what people would call. And I think sometimes, young people especially, getting into a job and practically learning the skills just suits their personality and suits their way of learning, down to a T. And I think that's where apprenticeships are brilliant. And once the markets are correct and obviously the employers the correct destination, I think they're invaluable.
Yeah, I think the key thing with apprenticeships moving forward is that you have this tri-party relationship between the employer, the learner, and the training provider ourselves, and constantly having that cycle spinning all the time about how can we progress this learner to make them more employable? How do we develop them more to make them more employable? That's what's really benefited more practical learners in the sense of sport qualifications and sport pathways. And it's an exciting time for some young people because in addition to that, you will still, if you didn't have English and maths, you wouldn't be restricted to going on these particular pathways. But it is becoming quite more broad and open, offering different types of avenues beyond the apprenticeship as well, and progressing on to higher level apprenticeships. There's a lot of different pathways, and finally on that point, what is the way of doing it? Well, there's no one way of doing it. It's all mapped specifically around the individual. So if we had two learners working at Access doing community activator coach, the way you assess them at the start through skill scan, they'll have different areas to develop on. So it really personalises the plan moving forward, and that's what employers really like. It's not a case of you're both doing the same assignment on the same topic. It can be kind of managed differently to upskill the learner's awareness and understanding of a specific area. Or one might excel practically and the other one's planning, and they work together in that respect. So personalised apprenticeships, very individualised to the learner, to make them on the sort of like the back end of the apprenticeship, like with FE, more employable, working them towards that next destination all the time.
Perfect. And Jordan summed it up quite well there to say that I'm certain that apprenticeships will suit a lot of our learners in terms of their next steps, or certainly something that they can progress on in the short to medium term future. We've added along the banner at the bottom all the way through this. If you're after more information, it's apprenticeships@accessport.ac.uk. You can obviously watch this podcast back as well. We will be clipping some of it up and putting it out as little sound bites on social media just to pick out some of the key bits of information. But again, if you are an employer, if you're one of our students, if you're one of our future students, or anything in between, please feel free to drop us an email or DM us on our socials, which is Access Sport College. But Colin, thanks a lot for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. And again, thanks for coming on board with Access Sport, and look forward to working with you much more in the future.